I'm Simon Lipson. Welcome to Nice One Cyril. Right, Brentford, Xavi, Archie Grey, energy, attack. No one played badly. So what are we going to moan about? I'm sure we'll find something because Spurs fans are, after all, the unhappiest fans in the country. Before Brentford, there was Newcastle. We showed some fight, didn't we? And Romero played like someone insulted his manhood. Meanwhile, Gary of Harlow says, bring back Troy Parrott. Gary's an idiot, of course, but some of our kids are doing great things on loan. We'll talk about that. Bissouma caught inhaling laughing gas. Once was stupid. Twice is Thelma and Louise. We've got Sparta Prague tomorrow. Predictions incoming. Anecdotes, nostalgia. A lot to pack in. But we'll make time to have a laugh at the goons. It's Nice One Cyril. Nice One Cyril. So, welcome to Nice One Cyril. On the show today, we have, as ever, the encyclopedic Julie Welch. And cheerful, he's more cheerful than usual anyway, Kev Acott. New to the pod, we have Chris Askham. Now, Chris, let me put it to you this way. I have lived within, I suppose, about 4 miles of Spurs for the last 35 years. And at most, it takes me 20 minutes there and back. And, you know, coming back on the bike, feeling miserable, at least it's over and done with. Chris travels from bloody Cornwall. What a lunatic. Chris, what kind of a journey is that for you?
Depends on the score. There's always better to travel in hope. And then you go and see Spurs and you come back a little despondent usually, swearing that you're never going to go again and you're going to use your season ticket at Truro City instead. We travel in hope. Well, I travel in hope rather than expectation, but I think that's all of us these days. And Saturday, well, what happened? We only bloody well won. We scored more than one goal. We didn't concede any. And hell, long may it continue.
Well, worryingly, Chris, we played really well. And that can only mean one thing. And we'll come on to that, Kev, because I know you want to talk about the eternal optimism, pessimism, circle of doom. But let's have a chat. Julie, what did you make of our performance against Brentford?
Well, first of all, come back all I said about Xavi Simons, and you notice that I now know how to pronounce his name. I thought he was absolutely fantastic, setting up that goal for Richarlison, and then his own sort of solo effort, which was, I thought, where has this guy been hiding? You know, we've had him so long, and suddenly it turns out that it might be money well spent after all. I mean, it was fabulous, wasn't it? But it was also, I mean, to have, I think Richarlison needs somebody like that to, keep scoring goals. I know Richarlison wants to keep scoring goals because he wants to be in the Brazil national team. I just thought it was great, so much so that my immediate thought was, it's just a blip. It's not going to last. Just enjoy this joy while it lasts, all of 5 seconds. Next week, it will just be back to the usual kind of disaster, pessimism, despondency.
I've got to tell you, Julie, my first thought was let's check the table and see if we can still win the league, because that's where I am at the moment. We are going to win the league. Xavi was marvellous, wasn't he, Kevin? He really was everywhere. He looked dangerous every time he got anywhere near the ball. He was fast, he was sharp, and wonderful pass. And the finish, the shades of the great Mickey van der Ven there.
Absolutely. I don't think really he's been hiding, or that's been hiding. I think he's been hidden for whatever reason. And it may well be a good reason that Frank wasn't seeing, in training, what he wanted, and so he was, bringing him on half hour from the end. He would get sort of bundled over by some big bastard on the other team, and we'd all say he's rubbish. It was just brilliant, and his celebration was brilliant, and I think that was possibly my moment of the season, was him standing up on the adverts and doing whatever that. I saw an explanation of it, and it didn't make any sense. But it was something about his brother and playing PlayStation and so. But it was just fantastic, and I thought, this is why I travel almost as far as Chris. I mean, it can take me 25 minutes, really. It was just fantastic, and hard not. I don't want to bring negative into it straight away, but I just thought, why hasn't he been playing from the start?
The argument could be, I suppose, that Frank knows what he's looking at. He knows what he's seeing in training, and he felt that he needed to bring him in slowly and gradually. But Chris, I mean, it was a remarkably energetic and creative performance. And it was interesting with the goal that he scored. He'd actually lost the ball, and there was a little groan, wasn't there? Typical Spurs groan. And then he had it back in a flash with some tenacity, and he was away, and the finish was so cool.
It was a really cool finish. It wasn't hurried. He knew what he was going to do, and he knew, more importantly, when he was going to do it. And at first, I thought he was going to get overwhelmed by 2 or 3 defenders coming in, and he just kept them away, and he took the time, and he just finished it with, well, it was terrific. I was pleased for him. I was pleased for the setup. The setup that I thought, Saturday, was so different. And I don't know whether this is Thomas the Tinkerer or Thomas 2 wins. He's got 2 wins at home now, 2 league wins, that is. And that was the first time, I think, since Burnley, first game, when I actually felt we were going to win that game pretty much from the word go. Not always, because we went through 5, maybe 10 minutes in the first half when we were a bit patchy, and another few minutes in the second half when we were similarly patchy. But the whole team looked sharp. The whole team looked focused, and it was that. Now, was it Brentford? Because they gave us room in midfield? Was it the fact that people like Bentancur suddenly got his act together? Was it because Xavi was demanding the ball and using it and bringing other players into the game? I think it was a combination of the whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I did put on our WhatsApp, Nice One Cyril WhatsApp group, that I do have this slightly nagging suspicion that Brentford are shit, but I don't want to let that detract from what was a very, very good performance. And I don't think at any point did I feel we were going to blow it, and it was just a real pleasure to watch. And we're talking about Xavi, who was not only creative, but he went in. He was pretty hard, and he went in for some tackles. You think he's too frail for that, but he did it, and that shows great intent. The other thing, Julie, for me, I know you want to talk about Richie because you love Richie, but I want to talk about Archie Grey, because for me that was a performance that bespoke class and composure and maturity beyond his years.
I love Archie as well. I think I've always said what we need is, a Perryman for this era. And I think he has that kind of willingness, that intelligence and that versatility that Perryman had. And what I like about him as well is he's not showy. He's a kind of quiet player. I couldn't imagine him showboating, for instance, anything like that. He just sort of gets on with it, keeps his head down. He goes where he's asked to be. I think he's a smashing player. He to have survived last season as he did, when a lot of young players would have been, trying to get out of Tottenham as quickly as they possibly could. He just stuck to his guns. I think he's a fantastic player. And, how old is he now? 19? I mean, he is so young. He, as I say, he is really that kind of reliable player reliable, intelligent and talented that Spurs haven't had for an awful long time. And I like it. It's not that he lacks personality. He's just sort of, mature and strong and willing. I think he's absolutely great. We're so lucky.
We are lucky. I mean, I think you mentioned something there about personality, which is something I often wang on about Odobert and others not quite having what it takes. Archie, he's quiet. He's not demonstrative, but he kind of looks like a kid who completely stands his ground, knows what he's about, and he just gets on with the job and does it the same as a 29-year-old. It's a remarkably mature performance, that one, and I think he's a mature kid. The other thing you mentioned there, Julie, about no showboating. Kev, our friend Kudus, who otherwise was rather brilliant against Brentford, if not quite as sharp as he has been, but there was a moment, wasn't there, towards the end of the second half?
I'm all right with that. I'd like to. He looked better than he has done for 2 or 3 matches. When you trying to find an honest West Ham fan is obviously difficult anyway. But one about Kudus, they'll either tell you what you want to hear. He was obviously erratic. There was some attitudinal stuff going on at West Ham, and I think there's aspects of that still there. But he did that point where I don't know who the Brentford player was, but where he just turned the Brentford player sort of around on the touchline, and it was just fantastic. And he then got fouled. But that was a piece of brilliance, and there was a moment during that match where I thought we have made some good signings, and I don't think I've felt like that since about 1978. You just think, we Kudus is looking good, Xavi's looking great.
What about Ndombele though? I mean, that's a bit unfair.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're never really going to sort of match him and what he brought to the club, but. Yeah, it was. It was just. It's weird. It's weird feeling this positive.
Yeah, I mean, you're beginning to concern me a little bit, Kev, because we do know that we may have to just hold our horses a little bit. Chris, talking about Kudus, he looked to be very close to his best again. What I like about Kudus is that he's happy to get stuck in. He's so powerful. Someone, I can't think where, said that his legs look as though they're not disconnected from his body, in as much as he always looks like he's going to fall down, but he's so strong, he stays up.
He reminds me of the other Dembele, the one who could never get the ball off. Not Ndombele, but our Dembele. He was
Mr. Dembele, yeah.
Yeah, and he was. He has that about him. He has the tricks, fantastic. Yes, he has the skill, of course. He has the strength, but Saturday he seemed to have the desire to go back and again and again and again, and he was putting the ball in. He was taking the man on. He was drawing their defenders to him, and that was freeing up other play. And the one thing that came across on Saturday was how much space we had in midfield. We were able to utilise that. Xavi was on his toes all over the place, and in a good way. And we were pinging balls around almost for fun, and it was difficult to actually get a real handle on that because I wasn't expecting it. No. It didn't happen. It hasn't happened virtually the whole season. And for me, that was very much a but moment. Because it's Spurs, there has to be a but. Is it a one-off or is this the start? Is this Thomas the Frank engine or 2 wins or the Tinkerer? Is he starting to come across and get an idea of what his best team is? And I read or heard somewhere something to the effect of he's admitted he doesn't know his best side. And it was put down to something like, I think he said competition. And is that competition for places? Well, if that's the case, that's always going to be the case. So you've got to have an idea of where your prime 6 to 8 main players are going to be, and who they're going to be, and how they're going to play. And yet Saturday, from the word go, we were on it. And I don't understand really how we haven't been able to do that before. I was waiting for the drop-off. Yes, it did drop off a little bit in the second half, but it came back. And maybe kudos is bit of showboating on the touchline that brought Romero back to life all of a sudden was a point in case. Case in point. He actually said to me, or that said to me, that defence was determined. They weren't going to concede a goal. They were not going to let it go. And, okay, Vicario helped us out a couple of times, and probably, that's another topic anyway. But I felt that there was a determination throughout the whole team that we were not going to concede. We were going to win this damn game, whatever happened.
Yeah, you certainly see that. And I wonder whether some of that was a carryover from the Newcastle match, where, look, we weren't great against Newcastle, but we did pass the ball in their half a few times. We did get up the field. We did try and score goals, and we did. We scored 2 goals through our own mad dog. And it was, from that point of view, I felt there was a carryover from that kind of spirit. I wonder, Julie, do you think there's any sense? And this is, Chris makes a great point there about how long it's taking Frank to kind of find his right, the right combo. I wonder whether, thinking back to Pochettino, who also started stodgily, whether he kind of just stumbled across the team that was going to work for him. And maybe that's the way a manager coming in with a whole new squad, all new players, doesn't know anything, doesn't know, he's got to somehow get a bit lucky in order to find the chemistry.
I think there's an element of that, because Pochettino's first season at Spurs didn't really take off till being away to Aston Villa, when early Kane and Ryan Mason came good. But I think also...
That was when Kane scored his only free kick ever out of 496.
I think that what struck me about Newcastle was that finally Romero was sort of, I've had enough of this, I'm going to... It was like, I was reminded a bit of Romero's battle with Harry Maguire in Bilbao. He just sort of took over. It was the night that Romero really came into his own as the great captain. And I got that feeling when we were sort of kind of really struggling against Newcastle. And it was Romero who actually kind of turned it around. That equalising goal, the very shabby bicycle kick, it was just wonderful. That kind of ferocious urgency about it, which had been lacking in the team, I think, before. It was all there at last, that intensity. And I think that when against Brentford, there was a sort of lightness about the team, which I hadn't seen before either. The only damper I would put on it is that I think Romero is now one yellow card away from a 7-game suspension. So how, if at all, it's going to affect his performances in the foreseeable, I don't know. Probably won't. He probably won't take any notice of it at all and just get the 7-game suspension. But will do something brilliant before he does. So actually, I enjoyed Newcastle more than Brentford in a way, because it was just so fantastic at the end, unbelievable the way. I just thought, Spurs haven't played this way all season. And it was just that kind of the closing minutes. I thought, yeah, right, that's it. That's what we want.
Dug in, didn't we? And that's something we haven't really been doing. And I think what Romero did, is that, Kev, you probably know this better than I do, is that called main character energy or something like that? He just decided, this is it. I'm not taking any more of this shit. I'm going to sort it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richarlison often has main character energy wrongly, and I think Romero definitely did. Yeah, that. I mean, I'm not quite as positive about that match, or I wasn't at the time. The Newcastle match, I thought that was a poor Newcastle side, and we were rescued. We were rescued by Romero. Which was great and felt really good, and great. We got a draw, and it was certainly a step forward from previous performances. But I actually think we then leapt forward against Brentford. I think we were much better than we had been at Newcastle. Something quite dramatic happened in between the two. But yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not sort of decrying. Romero did. I think that is what happened. He just got fed up with our lack of.
Do you think that was also down to the ridiculous penalty that was conceded as well? Because there appeared to be that appeared to be that point that brought the resilience back into our game, into our approach to the game. And yes, it was Romero who basically pulled us up by the bootstraps and got everyone to, at some point, almost camp in their half. But it seemed to me that the turning point was that stupid penalty. And I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I still don't understand it. The fact that I think it was lack of character on the officials anyway, and how you can do that and referee a game off the pitch. I'm not a great one for VAR at the best of times, but I think that was just ridiculous. But it struck me at the time. This was Romero saying, I'm not taking any more of this shit from anybody. If I've got to do it myself, I'll do it, and I'm going to bloody well do it. The fact that it was I won't say an express bicycle kick, just crept in, but the fact that it invaded everybody and it just nestled in the corner was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it actually beat about 5 defenders and a goalkeeper with going in slower than I can run. So that's how slow it was. I think... Kev, I just wanted to quickly ask you about this because you sent me a WhatsApp message regarding Porro. Now, as regular listeners to this show will know, none of us are particularly kind of fans of Pedro Porro. We think he's a bit of a performative pelican, and he's not as good as he likes to think he is. But there was a moment, wasn't there, against Brentford, where suddenly he's Pedro again, isn't he? He's not Porro, he's Pedro again.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't think he's got enough credit, actually, since his ball up to Xavi was just brilliant. And he's done that, now and again since he's been with us, but it's too rare. But it was a lovely ball. That was a lovely goal. But I think we should give him credit because we do slag him off because he's disappointing so often. But that was great, and I think if he can do more of that, then brilliant.
He needs to be able to cross a ball without hitting the first defender or the first player in front of him. And if he can do that, and we can have a player like Richarlison in the middle or Kolo Muani who can actually feed off those opportunities, then so much the better for it. Because Rishi is not a back to goal player. He's not a hold up player. He's somebody who you make the chance for him, he'll put it 9 times out of 10. He'll put it away. There'll always be the 10th time when it goes wherever. But he's certainly Richarlison's attitude, I think, is a great and positive one. I know he wears his heart on his sleeve. Lots of things happening in his life, perhaps, that cause that. But when he gets on the pitch and you play to his strengths, he is actually a bloody good player.
Yeah.
I wanted to quibble with you about the 9 out of 10 finishes. I think he's a 6 out of 10 finisher, but but the point is he gives us something when he's on his game. He gives us that kind of, I always talk about him having a bit of a nuisance value, but when he's on his game, he's more than that. It's nuisance plus. There are other things that, occupy defenders in the same way that maybe Kudus occupies, more than one defender. And that's important because that releases Moani, it releases Xavi, it releases other players to invade that space. So, all right, thank you for that. It's an interesting conversation about that performance. Kev, we must not get carried away.
I don't know. I hate myself. I hate myself for the negativity, but that's from, we've all been watching them for 40, 50, however many years, and it's hard to avoid the negativity. It's hard to avoid that thought. That was a one-off. He got it right. Everything went right. Brentford weren't very good. We were great, but it's not going to continue. But at the same time, there's genuinely part of me, and I suspect part of most Spurs fans, that thinks, no, we are. He did get it right, and he'll learn from it, and he'll build on it, and so will the players. And that constant sort of, can I use the word dialectic? Because I like the word dialectic. So I'm going to throw that. It's always there. It's probably always going to be there. I can't imagine a time if we won the title 5 years in a row. At the beginning of that sixth season, you'd think, yeah, it's gonna collapse now, isn't it? Inevitably, we can't. It's really difficult. It's difficult emotionally to just try and hold those two things together simultaneously. Yes, it was a great performance, and maybe it was a one-off, and maybe we're just not as good as we looked. I didn't have those. I didn't. It's only in the last day or so that I've got to that point, because I think before that it was just brilliant.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I in my youth, after my horrible career as a solicitor, I then had a horrible career running a recruitment company. And what used to happen in the early days of that company was we would make a placement and, there's a fee of X thousand quid, and you get so excited about it. And then another placement you thought was going to happen didn't happen, and you get so low. And I reached a point where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I've just got to take each success and failure as exactly, it's got to be the same thing, right? Treating triumph and disaster the same. And I got to that point with Spurs because there was a time, I think, when elation could just transport you to a point where you can't imagine losing again, and then you lose. And you think, what the fuck? And you feel absolutely desolate. So let's take. I'm segueing brilliantly here, Julie. You'll admire this, I'm sure, because Spurs fans. It turns out, I think Lee sent us something he found. We are at the bottom of the happiness table. Now, you've probably been watching Spurs a touch longer than Chris, who started going in '66. I started going in 1970. Kev a couple of years after that. So you've been there. Where are you on the happiness table? And is this a fair way to judge our fans?
I think that Spurs fans are special for various reasons, because we have had sort of so many fantastic achievements and triumphs and so many disasters. We have been at times a national joke. A lot of us are drama queens, but maybe you can say that about the fan of any football club. I don't know. Because I don't know what it's like to be a fan of another team, then I couldn't really say. At the moment, my mood is kind of bordering on cynical, but maybe I'm kind of growing out of that a little bit now that Levy has gone. But on the other hand, I don't think much is going to change. I don't know. You just go on, don't you? I don't have that kind of terrible optimism that I used to have when I was when I was at school, because I started supporting Spurs when they were winning the double. So, from that you just conclude that Spurs are the best team that the world has ever seen, and nothing will ever go wrong. But over successive seasons and years, you do realise that things do go wrong. I mean, is there another side which for the whole of a decade was a complete joke? For instance, the 90s, which actually had some amazing moments, but we just remember it as a terrible decade. Do other clubs have that same sort of absolute trough? I don't know.
Well, I think you make a good point, because I think we assume that we are alone in this desperate struggle, with to success and failure. But I mean, Chris, Chelsea were absolute dog shit for years and years and years until Abramovich came in. Man United were shit for years, and then they started winning everything. And then there's this assumption when you're a fan of one of those moneyed clubs that the routine win every Saturday. I mean, you just expect it. We have never been in that position where there's a routine win. It always feels like Spurs, there's always that possibility of fucking things up.
It's not a possibility, it's a probability.
Yeah.
Because the historical records will show that. I've said before that I started going at a certain time and it all seemed sort of pretty easy, really. Football is a simple game. Get ball, score goal. There's a little bit in between that, but if you do the simple things and the things correctly, I'll go back to the 9 times out of 10 bit. Okay, I take your point on Rishi, but there's a damn good chance you're going to come out on top. I remember Billy Nick. He used to say, and I think he drummed it into most people anyway, when you're not in possession, get in position. And you can see that time after time, game after game. One of our players or any player in any other team will pass the ball and stand back and admire it. Oh, look, I've managed to pass to a teammate, without anybody else touching the ball. Well, that's your fucking job. Get on with it. Play the ball, move into position, get the return. If it doesn't come to you, then you've created space for somebody else. And I feel that probability point is that, yes, we were going to fuck it up because history dictates that. And I think now everything that I look at with Spurs is tempered with that point of view. It is now, it's looking great. Newcastle was fantastic for different reasons. Brentford was fantastic because we took the Newcastle bits into the Brentford game and made sure that we stayed on top. We've got another game tomorrow. Christ knows what's going to happen then. And then we've got, in the not too distant future, we've got Liverpool at home, and Liverpool are having a bad time. So, Dr. Tottenham, now's your time.
We'll talk about Sparta Prague, which is, as we recording now, it's tomorrow night. As people listen, it's tonight or after the match, depending on when you download. But look, let's have a little chat. We were talking, I mentioned in the opening monologue that Gary of Harlow was talking about getting Parrott back. Now, obviously, that's too thick for words. But some of our kids, I've been going on about Mikey Moore and, bring him back. And now Mikey's really clicked into gear. Kev, he scored another gorgeous goal for Rangers. And in fact, there was another one that was disallowed that was equally beautifully finished. We've got this kid, Mason Melia, coming, I think in January, and Vuskovic. Jesus Christ, what a goal he scored.
Yeah, they all look really exciting, I think, for the future. Mikey Moore, of the three of them, it's just I watched that goal again and again and again, and it was partly about his celebration as well. There's like a personal. I think sometimes with those sort of young players, it's a sort of personal thing. He had such a hard time there. It's the most disastrous loan, and then they've got a new manager. A new feeling around the club, I think, and he just looked so happy. And I guess what I was doing was sort of projecting into next season or the season after, thinking he's going to do that for us, and that's so exciting, I think. And also, which again is an advantage on the whole that Frank has over Postecoglou, we can gradually bring these young players into the team, and they're not going to be forced like Archie was into, and Bergwall was, really too early for them. Having said that, it's probably it did them both good in different ways, but so I think it's really exciting. It says something about us as a club that we're good at getting these potentially good young players. The test obviously is going to be.
I've had my eye on Mikey Moore since before he came into the side as a 16-year-old and showed some wonderful stuff, but also went off the boil. And I think, having been at Rangers, I think he started in that vein. He just couldn't quite get himself out of first gear, and then he's just found it. And when you see what he does, that ability to receive the ball on the half turn, and he doesn't need to smash it into the back of the net. He looks up and sees where the goalkeeper isn't, and slides it in. I mean, that's composure, and that's a kid who's got time when everything else around him is, bonkers. He's got time to look up and see that because he trusts himself, and I love that about him. Julie, we've done this before, though, haven't we? We've got excited about kids. We've got another one, haven't we? Williams Barnett, who looks extraordinary. But so often, I'm thinking of players who have just, we thought they were going to be great. Ali Dick, remember him? Neil McNabb never really quite made it. I wonder what it is that where a very gifted kid just isn't able to bring that to the senior game.
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because Spurs have had as many misses as well as hits in that respect. I mean, I'm really pleased that Mikey Moore is at last sort of showing what he can do. And I was just going to add that you were talking about him having timing. A very, very great writer, David Winner, who I was chatting to him the other day. We were talking about, if I dare say this name, Dennis Bergkamp, hush my mouth, another. But he said, for the great players, every second is a long one. And I think Mikey Moore might have that. That's just the very long second in which all those decisions flash through their minds about, who's where they're going to put the ball, what weight they're going to put on it, the sort of mathematical calculations they have to make. And I think he has got that ability. As far as Mason Melia is concerned, he's doing a lot of stuff in Ireland at the moment. He's 18 years old, I think. And he's sort of being cracked up to be the next big thing. And I just... As was Parrott,
yes,
of course. That's what I was going to say, as with Parrott. So I'm reluctant to sort of start rejoicing yet because, as you say, sometimes, you think they're going to be great. And, while they're not hopeless, they're just not quite there for the PL. Looking at Mikey Moore, do you think he's put on a bit of bulk, for instance, which is absolutely essential for the Premier League, of course? If he's sort of got more strength, if he's bigger in his body, I think that's a plus. I haven't seen Mason Melia play, so I don't know what he's like. It's difficult to say, really. Which way it'll go. Luca Williams Barnett, I mean, he looks the part at the moment, but he's playing what in the under 19s? He's not a big kid. That's one thing that I noticed. And again, one of the reasons that the thing about Xavi Simons is that he's not a big kid either, and I looked at him for weeks and thinking, he's never ever going to survive in the Prem, but maybe it's not just about being big and muscular. Maybe that sort of it's a sort of firefly skill that Simons has got,
but also he's quite sinewy, I think. Simons, and that's the kind of thing you develop as a man of 22, 23, and you look at Williams Barnett, who's a kid of 17, and maybe that's all he's lacking at the moment. It's that physical maturity that comes, over time. Chris, it was interesting. It was such a lovely description of the long second, and I was reminded always, as I always am, of the great Glenn. Because he trusted his first touch, because there was no doubt that he'd have the ball under control immediately, he was able to look up and see everything. And of course, he had such an array of skills to deliver that ball. God, I'd love to see him striding around amongst this lot, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I'm just not sure that the others, or too many of the others around him, are actually on his wavelength.
No.
But
don't forget he was passing it to Chris Jones and Jerry Armstrong, Ian Moores, and
fair point. But still, it would be lovely, and he would get more protection from referees. Maybe even overprotected. I don't know. I still think that there's an awful lot to be done on referees anyway. Heavy weight would be one thing. The long second, all the great players have it. George Best had it. Jimmy Greaves had it. Even the defenders, Dave Mackay. Problem is now we're all Spurs supporters. We're always looking back, and I want to look forward. I want to look at these guys coming through. I want to look at the Mikey Moores who has got this long second. I want to look at the Williams Barnett again, who may well have this. And then we've got, I think, the most exciting one is, and I can't pronounce his name, Vuskovic. Whatever.
Vuskovic.
Like yeah.
Vuskovic, yeah.
Yeah. To me, he is the most exciting one because he's a beast. He's an absolute beast, and he's so young, and he's so seemingly intelligent and so equipped for the Premier League, and he's pulling up trees in Germany, and he's talking about maybe staying there a second year. Hey, no, you come to us, mate.
Come back. Yeah.
But then what do we do with the ones that we've got? For example, will Romero stay? Will Van der Ven stay? Would Van der Ven move to left back? Well, we are going to have the danger, maybe in the shorter term, of having an embarrassment of riches, but not throughout the team. We're going to have a number of defenders. We're going to have a couple or three of midfield players, but I don't know we're going to have the rest of the balance that we as a club need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we expect that, if we do have that embarrassment of riches, but not a balance in the squad, that's where a kind of perceptive transfer policy comes into play, and that's where we hope we're going to fill those gaps with the appropriate talent. Well, let me just move on a little bit from that. Kevin, what the fuck is wrong with Yves Bissouma?
I've been annoyed with him for a long time because I saw a couple of matches that he played for Brighton, and he was just brilliant. And when we got him, I thought this is a good buy. And he showed little tiny bits of it. Really, there's obviously something wrong temperamentally or attitudinally, and now he's messed up and been an idiot again with nitrous oxide. And you just think, oh God, go. Whether I'd be, so easily saying go had he been playing really well and this had happened, I don't know. But, he's obviously upset people, I think, at the club as well. So I think it's just been a disastrous, length of time for him with us. He may do all right somewhere else. I don't know how old he is now.
29.
Yeah, so he hasn't got long.
I thought he actually came in, didn't he, towards the end of last season and put in some performances, in Bilbao and elsewhere. You thought, well, he wasn't brilliant, but he was solid. But he's the old self-destruct thing, Julian. There's so many players over the years. It's often the way with gifted players, and I think Bissouma might just about fall into that category. Players who just self-destruct. They're somehow the game they play, which is all about creativity and fantasy. It also bespeaks a temperament that, not always, of course, by any means, but often bespeaks a temperament that is not actually equipped to deal with the necessary discipline and training, all that stuff that you absolutely have to have in order to succeed.
For Spurs, the classic would be Ndombele, who, when he was playing Lyon, was and in the Champions League, was, absolute mustard, fantastic player. Pochettino saw him, fell in love with him. That was the player he wanted. Spurs paid huge amounts of money. I can't remember the exact fee to bring him over here. I think he scored in his first outing. Was it against Sheffield United? And after that, of course, he was a complete dud, and he just sort of ate himself to death almost. And that was the end. It is a temperamental thing in some players. A creative player, he couldn't cope with being away from France, I don't think. So he was homesick. You just don't know, though, because I think clubs still do character assessments of players quite carefully, but I don't know. There are just some players, I think, who, as he said, can't cope with the rigours of this footballing life as it is at the moment.
He did things on the ball sometimes, didn't he, that you thought, oh my God, this is insane ability, two-footed, fast, powerful, strong. You couldn't get him off the ball, but his head was all over the show, and that's such a shame. But he's done nothing since, of course.
Spurs obviously destroyed him, the Spurs experience.
Yes, probably true. Let's move on, because we're getting towards the end of today's pod. Now, Kev, you are our Czech Republic football specialist. You know your way around every player and every team in the Czech Republic. But I think you're gonna have to defer to Chris here, because he's actually been to a match at Sparta Prague. Come on, Chris, tell us all about it.
It was bloody cold. It was freezing. It was, I can't remember when it was, but Paul Robinson was in goal. And I think before the game started, he tried to conduct the singing from the goal line. But I can't even remember the score. A friend and I drove out there. We had a couple of days in Prague. And the most memorable thing was a friend of mine eating a Scotch bonnet pepper in a dark restaurant, thinking it was a cherry tomato, and then couldn't speak for probably 20 minutes. That was the memorable bit. But yeah, it was. You'd think it was almost like an Eastern European stadium in the old Eastern European manner, and I got a feeling we won, or we didn't lose too badly. I really can't remember. But
it's all the same. If you're Spurs, winning, not losing too badly is a win.
Yeah, exactly. And also, as I said before, it's you journey in hope, and it's the experience that sort of brings it back to you. So Prague was great. The football wasn't terrific, but the trip to Prague was fantastic. Thank you very much. Next.
Okay, good. Well, look, I feel duly educated. Let's. There's no point predicting anything about that match, because it'll be old news by the time people listen to this. But we're going to kill them 5-0. So that's it. Just take that as read. Now, look, we need to have a little giggle, don't we, Kev? The Gooners, they blew it against Aston Villa, followed by all of them being shot by a sniper after the winning goal. What happened?
That was one of the most bizarre things I've seen for a long time. It was like they'd either planned it, like they planned goal celebrations,
Yes,
like they planned the opposite, and all threw themselves to the ground and then started sort of banging the ground. And it was just bizarre, really. Great,
so weird,
but bizarre.
And followed by a rather entertaining set of interviews by Arsenal TV with some Arsenal fans. I didn't even have the sound on, and these people's mouths were going, and the spittle was flying.
Yes.
What's wrong with these people?
I know. They're a funny club, aren't they? They're because they overrate themselves. They overrate Arteta. They overrate their players. But they're all right. Do you know what I mean? And then they lose one match, and suddenly they hate everything about Arsenal, about Arteta, about their players, and so and it's very strange. I think they're a very strange group of people. I know some of them. Some of them can be quite nice, but
You're lying, Kev. That's just not possible. Let's have a quick word, Julie. You've written another book. Well, you've updated your legendary biography of Tottenham Hotspur. Tell us about that. When's it out, or is it out already?
I think it's actually December the 11th is the big release day, although there are copies available now online at shop.vsp something. And writing it was an absolute joy for a change, because we'd actually won something. I'd got something to rejoice about. We even managed to get in before it went to the printers, the departure of Daniel Levy. So it's just, I mean, it's a few extra chapters. There's a new intro all about that last 7 minutes in Bilbao, what hell it was. As ever, should the good Lord spare me, I just hope I can go on writing this, and in another couple of years, perhaps we'll have won the title, and so it'll be another triumphant update.
I think you're going to find that book in the fantasy section.
Well, there we go.
All right. Well, look, it's great. And by the way, we have one of these magnificent books to give away on the podcast. Listen out next week. We'll have a little competition, and we'll be tweeting about this. And you really want to win this. I've got a copy, and it's honestly, it's stunning, and it's a masterwork, Julie. It really is, or a mistress work. I don't want to be un-PC about it. It's extraordinary. Now then, we are at the end of the show, and so it just kind of remains for me to say thank you to newbie Chris Askham and Kev. Julie, what are we giving him out of 10? What do we, because we have to mark the newbies.
I'll give Chris a 10 out of 10. Fantastically interesting, great anecdotes, knows his stuff far more than I do. Yeah, good.
Kev,
I'm only going to give him a 9.5 because he shames me complaining about getting to the ground from Crouch End. So 9.5.
Okay, I'm giving him a 10, but as you know, I always mark everything out of 100. So but still, it's still a very, very good mark. Chris, thank you so much. And listen, thank you for, trudging out to Prague, trudging from Cornwall. We have to have lunatics like you. Otherwise, we're not Spurs. Kevin Acott, thank you. Julie, thank you. And we'll be back next week. Don't forget, you can follow us on X/Twitter at Nice One Cyril Pod. We're on Facebook. We are on Insta. And don't forget also that you can subscribe to the podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for being here. And we'll be back on Friday with our little pod, the Extra Time Pod. Come on, you Spurs.